If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers. Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, aging. In this episode, Corbin and I share our thoughts on the 7 simple muscle building habits shared by T Nation and how these habits can benefit those of us seeking to age well. All right, so Corbin, I like to sometimes rip apart articles that we find on the internet. Sometimes we find some good ones, and I think we've gone to T Nation a few times and found some really good information from them. And I recently came across an article, The 7 Simple Muscle Building Habits. I thought we could talk about that today because I think it is as useful for the aging adult as well as it is for the young teenager that's trying to put on the pounds to look better at the beach, right? Or to perform in sports. Let's kind of dive into their 7 simple habits.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's a great subject to dive into. I think everyone wants hypertrophy, whether you're hitting your fitness goals, you're trying to look good at the beach, you're trying to maintain your strength overall, just like you said. So yeah, I'm actually really excited for this one.
And I like it starts out with help yourself to hypertrophy. And they're kind of self-quoting, but they start off with the line. And this article is written by Eric Bach. It says, don't overcomplicate muscle growth. It's actually simple. Practice these habits and get bigger. Now, for many of us, again, if we are aging adults, we're over 60 like myself, building significant, huge amounts of muscle may not be in the cards for us. And if we don't have the right genetics for it, even as a young person, we may not become the next, Ronnie Coleman or something like that. But we can not only build muscle, but if we can't build muscle as we age, we want to at least maintain that muscle. And so I think these 7 points can be very useful for us. So let's start with number 1.
Don't diet.
Okay. And so what do they mean by don't diet?
Well, don't diet, as we kind of talk about, you got to have a good balanced diet, good healthy lifestyle. But what they're saying primarily is don't do the fad diets, right? Don't dive into a ketogenic diet, especially if you're trying to build muscle, because as you know, our body needs carbohydrates in order to build muscle and, more importantly, replenish that muscle as well.
I think they're not necessarily talking about the fad diets, but I think a lot of people will tend to gravitate toward fad diets. And when we talk diet, I prefer, when I say diet, I mean what we're eating on a habitual basis. And we've talked about the importance of like the Mediterranean diet for longevity and good health. They're not saying don't eat a specific diet. What they're saying is do not go into a state of caloric restriction. And so when I talk diet, I'll often say there's really 3 diets. There's hypercaloric, eucaloric, and hypocaloric. And what they're saying, if you want to build muscle, you have to either be in a eucaloric state where your calories in balances with calories out, or you have to be in a hypercaloric state because your body needs the calories to build muscle. And so they're basically just saying, don't be constantly reducing your calories. And there's a later article by Christian Atrebido who comments about how you really shouldn't diet at all building muscle mass, that you want to focus on building the muscle because it's going to use calories, but be in kind of the right caloric state to where you're not adding fat with that. And if we take that approach, over time, we're going to be losing fat and gaining muscle if we are staying a lot closer to being in that more eucaloric state as opposed to excessively hypercaloric, or if we are hypocaloric, where we are restricting calories, we're actually going to be diminishing our capability of maintaining muscle mass. And a lot of people, as we age, we tend to focus on, I got to lose fat, I got to lose weight. And so we lose weight, we lose muscle along with that. We never really regain the muscle. And over time, we see this persistent loss of muscle mass and ultimately a progressive increase in our body composition where we're more fat.
I do think it's interesting. They also kind of mention intermittent fasting. They go over that really quick, but they primarily say like, hey, don't do it. If you're attempting to build muscle, you need to eat those 6 to 8 meals a day, which kind of goes back to that old school bodybuilding literature of, if you want to feed your muscles, you got to feed your stomach, right? You got to feed that with that 6 to 8 meals today, which contradicts some of the newer literature out there saying intermittent fasting is the key because it spikes your human growth hormone and all that. It spikes that ability to gain muscle.
Yeah, there's so much out there in the literature that can be twisted in so many ways. They can design studies that will support and provide evidence for their views. And so you're going to see people that can give you strong arguments for the ketogenic diet or for intermittent fasting. And what they're basically saying here is to go back to that initial quote, don't overcomplicate muscle growth. It's actually very simple. Don't overcomplicate diet. It's basically the bulk of maintaining a healthy body composition and building muscle mass is caloric balance. And so you want to be, if you have body fat, then you need to be in a eucaloric state. If you are above, your acceptable levels of body fat, you don't want to be eating excess calories because you're already eating excess calories. And so you're getting enough calories to potentially build the muscle mass. We want to do the things that are going to build the muscle mass.
Right.
And so don't restrict your calories, but try and maintain a more eucaloric state. Sometimes you hear it as isocaloric. I don't like iso because it's like the same calories and we're not necessarily the same calories every day. It fluctuates based on our physical activity and those types of things. But overall, we want to be averaging our calories over the course of a week so that we are fueling the muscle, we're fueling physical activity, but we are not depositing body fat. And so that's what they mean by don't diet.
Well, it kind of segues perfectly into number 2, which is get the calories in. They basically make it super simple, saying that you can't put on lean muscle mass if you aren't consuming enough calories.
Right. But that also doesn't mean, if you are already storing a lot of body fat, that you need to increase calories in order to increase muscle mass. And particularly as we age, we don't want to be focusing in on a hypercaloric diet or I'm going to do a massing phase. The older we get, the less important those massing phases are going to be for us. When you're 18, 16 years old,
dirty bulk.
Yeah, eat as many calories as possible. I had this conversation. One of my wrestlers mentioned to me yesterday that, it started back into club wrestling in the evenings. And so he's burning more calories. And he said, I'm dropping weight. I said, you just got to eat more. You got to eat, start with about 500 calories more, see what that's doing for you. But we just got to get the calories into you because his metabolism is so high and he's doing so much activity. He's got to make sure he's getting enough calories that those calories are going into building the muscle as well as fueling the activity. And, just the normal growth of the body of this, maturing male body is going to need a lot of calories. But once we kind of hit about 25 or so, those calories are going to start to move into our fat a lot more easily than they did when we were in our teens. And so we want to make sure that we're tweaking our calories so that we have enough to build the muscle. And, if we're trying to gain mass, and obviously our caloric needs are going to go up, but the weight that we want to be putting on should be lean weight and not fat weight. And so when we say get the calories in, get the calories that your body needs for the activity that it's doing and having enough to be able to build a muscle as well.
Right.
And so for us aging or attempting to age well adults, we need to have adequate calories to sustain ourselves, but don't go overboard with the calories and think about the quality of the calories that you're taking in.
When I was a teenager, I was in that same category as that kid you just talked about with his super. My coaches put me on like 4 different diets to try and increase weight. Couldn't do it. At one point, they put me on like a steak and ice cream diet to try and improve it, and I
So obviously they had no sense of.
They had no, yeah. It was really funny though.
So we want the right calories, and so if you want to maintain your muscle mass as you age, or put some on, really, there's no reason why most of us who are aging that are not former athletes or not, currently in our most athletic state can't add more muscle mass. If you're 60 years old and you've been a power lifter, bodybuilder for the last 30, 40 years, yeah, you may not be able to put on much more muscle mass, but for most of us, we can still put some on.
Yeah, I don't know how my parents did it, honestly. I ate so much as a teenager growing up. I was never full. I was always hungry. I just remember being hungry all day, every day. Anyways, it probably would have helped if I got more protein in, which is number 3, up the protein.
Yeah, and I think that is a very important consideration for us as we attempt to age well. Probably one of the top priorities nutritionally for anyone aging is increase your protein a bit. Probably most of us are not getting enough protein unless, you're an older adult that's on the ketogenic diet. Then you might want to start looking at the quality of the protein that you're taking in. Are you really still getting enough protein, or are you getting more fat in that diet? It says the old rule of thumb about consuming 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is sound advice. And I think we've repeatedly said that on this podcast.
Yeah.
I think it's a very easy number to approach. Generally, you'll see that the numbers are going to be somewhere between about 0.8 and 1.2 grams being kind of that ideal range. 1.2 if you're really looking at being a bodybuilder or you're a young athletic adult who is trying to increase the muscle mass, gain strength, and so on. But generally, that 1-to-1 ratio is going to work pretty good, especially if you're aging.
Yeah. Number 4, keep track. And I'm actually kind of reading the keep track. It looks like they actually provide you in this article like a weight training log as well, which includes your starting pulse, the dates you worked out, your workout duration, and then a breakdown of legs, arms, chest, back, and abs.
Yeah, it's just kind of a sample. I think the important thing is that we track our progress, whether it's diet or whether it's our exercise, writing things down, in the kitchen, keeping track of your calories. And there are a lot of good apps for doing that. Find the one that works best for you. I really like the Renaissance Periodization diet app. That's been very useful because I can gauge what I'm supposed to eat every meal, when I should be eating those meals. It's a little less ideal for tracking when I'm not going to be following a very specific pattern, but it keeps me in that pattern. But writing down what you're eating and you're finding yourself gaining weight. Well, what are the things what am I doing that is causing me to gain this increased body fat? Or why aren't I putting on muscle mass? Or why aren't I maintaining muscle mass? Well, you can look back over what have I been doing, and that's going to give you an idea what you need to tweak. Because remember, it's always baby steps. There's little things that we can do in our diet that are going to have very significant benefits for us. And then in the gym, obviously, write down what you're doing workout-wise. If you're not gaining muscle, well, maybe it's because you haven't added weight in the last 3 months of your workouts. Or maybe you're doing too high of repetitions and not coming close to failure. So tracking things, I think, is hugely, hugely important. I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging.
The next one that they have is actually going to be use basic supplementation. Now, I know you're not a fan of supplementation at all. You think that we can get everything through our diet.
Not everything.
Well, a good majority of everything. But the two supplementations that they are suggesting in this T Nation article are actually two supplements that I can totally stand behind. One of them is creatine monohydrate. I know that we've talked about creatine several times on this podcast. I love the benefits of creatine, from the cognitive function that creatine gives you all the way up to the actual strength and muscle mass gains. It also talks about, in this particular article, that creatine can help increase DHT, which can help put on more muscle mass. And then the second one is fish oil. And as most of us know, again, fish oil, there's plenty of literature out there that says that improves your brain function, but fish oil, being a fat-based supplement, actually will help increase the hormone levels within your body in order to hit your goals of hitting that muscle hypertrophy and muscle gain. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, first with fish oil, I mean, I don't disagree with it being a useful dietary supplement. Thing to consider, though, is when you're taking fish oil, you are adding those fat calories into your body. So you need to take those into account with your caloric balance. But I would prefer to get those fish oils through eating oily fish,
right,
on a more regular basis. And I think that would be a little bit more helpful. But if you're not eating that, or you don't have as much access to oily fish, then a fish oil supplement is probably going to do you good, not going to do any harm. Creatine monohydrate, or any form of the creatine supplementation, is well supported in the research. We've known for years that it is highly beneficial for anybody that is doing intensive resistance training and trying to gain muscle mass. But more importantly, recent literature has shown, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast, that the majority of the American population is deficient in creatine.
Yep.
Meaning that you are not getting a gram of creatine in your diet per day, which is not a lot. But we find that from youth on through the elderly, all could benefit from more creatine in their diet. If 60% of the population is deficient, that means 60% of the population most certainly can benefit from supplementation. I would say 100% of the population can benefit from it. You can't really overdo creatine. Your body's just going to excrete that unless you have, poor kidneys. But a 5-gram supplementation a day, I think, is more than adequate to meet the needs of both brain health and muscle health. For the older adult, creatine monohydrate is going to help stimulate protein resynthesis and protein synthesis so that we can maintain our muscle mass. It's going to allow us to be able to perform a little bit better in the gym, which can help us to maintain our muscle mass. With younger individuals, maturing young first agers, they need creatine for brain development. About 15% of creatine in the body is stored in the brain, and we need to supplement that in order to improve brain development in children. And if children aren't getting enough meat in their diet, they're not going to see as effective brain development because they're not getting the creatine. And so that supplementation can help there. It's also been shown that, I forget the exact numbers, but of that 60% of the population that is deficient in creatine, about 15% of those, I believe it is, show signs of depression. So
Wow.
Creatine deficiency has been linked to depression. And so another reason to consider taking a creatine monohydrate supplementation. And so I can't underscore enough, I think, the importance of regular creatine supplementation for all ages. We're getting more meat in the diet. If you're a vegetarian, absolutely you need to take creatine in order to benefit the muscles, benefit the brain. When we look at other supplementation, my list is pretty short. Creatine kind of being on that list there is an important supplement.
Should be the number one supplement.
Yeah.
It really should be.
Other viable supplements, depending on your diet and your needs, would be whey protein, casein protein. Casein, I'm not as important with that. I don't like casein because the texture of it I don't like it. It gets too thick. But it's a good, slow releasing protein that makes it a little bit better than whey protein outside of the window of exercise.
So is beef protein, though.
What's that?
So is beef protein.
True. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you're getting enough protein in your diet, you don't need to supplement it. Whey protein is a little bit faster absorbing, and so it's going to be much better around your workouts to make sure that you're fueling the muscles effectively before and after that workout. But those aren't necessary supplements. Those are, if you're going to take a supplement, those are probably okay supplements that their benefits are pretty well established. Carbohydrate would be another, and this would be more like a glucose type of supplementation, getting, carbohydrate, fast absorbing carbohydrate into your diet around your workout. Now, most of us, again, especially if we're trying to lose body fat, we're probably not in a situation where we have to worry about taking a glucose supplement. But if you're doing very intensive, prolonged exercise, it's probably warrants, supplementing some glucose during that workout to make sure that we're maintaining our muscle glycogen.
Just gummy bears. Just take gummy bears.
There you go. And then a final supplement that can have some benefit for performance would be caffeine.
Oh, yeah. I think caffeine and creatine is really all you need. My personal opinion, but...
And I don't think of caffeine necessarily as a supplement per se. But if you need a little boost, you need that charge. I work out 4:30 in the morning. I don't drink caffeine before my workout, but if I'm dragging a little bit, I might put just a little bit of old coffee in my workout drink in order to just get a little bit of charge of caffeine. But I'm also not a big pre-workout person either, and I'm not a proponent of pre-workouts unless you are like really, really intensive training and you need that boost. But in the long run, caffeine is much better established as being something that's going to give you that stimulant boost that's going to get you through a workout. Cool. So those would be the ones. And I appreciate that their list is rather short and it's really just creatine monohydrate and fish oils. Other than that, there's no need for significantly more supplementation.
I would say the only thing that I would throw in is if you're not living in a sunny area, some vitamin D, right? Yeah. Not only just to help with mood, but also to help regulate that hormone level as well to help assist in putting on muscle mass. Yeah. But again, if you're in a sunny area and you don't need it, great. If you are taking the man-made vitamin D in a bottle, just a heads up, it can affect your liver. In case anyone's interested in that little fun fact.
And I think I could refer back to episode 99 where we had Dr. Joffrey on there. We talked a bit about the importance of vitamin D in just overall health.
Yep. Number 6 is eat your greens. Feel like that's simple enough. I also feel like that's also a controversial subject, especially with some of the later literature that has recently come out within the last 2 years, between 2021 and 2023. All the literature that's out there is kind of talking about, hey, leafy greens actually they kind of produce inflammation within the body, and they do other things because they're their own natural pesticides and stuff. But there's no denying the older literature, like the fiber and the vitamins and the other stuff the benefits you get from leafy greens.
Yeah, I'm not sure of any downside of eating your greens, and I would probably question a lot of that literature that
Just
starts to
saying.
kind of promote, it's inflammatory and things like that. It might be certain green vegetables might not be as good for you as others, but reality is if it's a dark green, fresh vegetable, it's probably going to be good for you to eat. Probably even a better approach than saying eat your greens is eat your colors. I think
Ooh,
is a
yeah.
much better approach because the more vibrant the colors are, the vegetables that you are eating, the more variety there is, the more likely you are to get a lot of the different micronutrients and things like that your body really needs. And all of those vegetables have fiber in them. And so the fiber is going to help for your digestive system. Um, your greens and your vegetables generally do not have high calories in them. And so you can eat a lot of those, get a lot of nutrients out of them without a lot of excess calories. It's going to give you a greater sense of fullness, which is going to cause you to eat less. So you're less likely to be too hypercaloric if you're trying to gain muscle mass. Do be careful that if you're eating too many greens and you're not eating your protein and you're not getting enough energy producing carbohydrate, then that may diminish your capacity to be able to put on muscle mass. But if you're eating plenty of vegetables, you're going to be getting enough carbohydrates for your body.
Well, especially if you're not just eating greens, but you're eating color. You're taking in fruit as well.
Yeah,
Blueberry, oranges, lemons. Like,
but I would also add, emphasize the greens, the vegetables more so than the fruits, because a lot of the fruits tend to be a lot more sugary than your vegetables are going to be, and so there's going to be a lot more excess carbohydrate in there. If you're going to eat fruit, eat it closer to your workout time as opposed to in your most sedentary periods of the day. Eat fruits that are going to be more fiber dense. Eat your fruit, don't drink your fruit.
oh, good.
Those types of things. But, consider the quality of the carbohydrates that you're eating if you're trying to gain muscle mass. You want the most nutrient dense. You want the ones that are going to fuel your body for exercise without leading to fat. And I'm a little less inclined to emphasize carbohydrate or grains for carbohydrates, other than maybe more legumes, eating more like oatmeal, stuff like that, rather than processed types of starches and things like that. If you're going to eat, you need some starches to fuel your muscles. Sweet potatoes, those types of things are going to be. Rice is going to be better for you than breads and those types of foods.
So would you? I mean, those obviously you would take in after a workout. Prior to the workout or during the workout, you said that you would supplement with some glucose, some form of simple sugar that's able to break down your body beforehand. Would you, in your opinion, say like a handful of blueberries before a workout might be a little bit easier with that fructose spike? It's going to be fast active. It's also you're going to get the antioxidants that come with it.
I mean, I think if you're talking carbohydrates relative to the workout, what are
Right.
you doing in the workout? Most of us really are not working out hard enough to need a significant dose of carbohydrate during the workout. If you are eating regularly and you're well fed, your body is going to have carbohydrate available. The key to an effective workout is replenishing your carbohydrates post workout so that you're storing that muscle glycogen for the next workout. And if you are depleting it during that workout, then you consider that additional supplementation.
Mm.
So for most of us going to the gym, going to Planet Fitness for a 30-minute workout, you don't need carbohydrate. But if you're a bodybuilder, an athlete that's spending an hour, 2 hours in the gym, or you're an endurance athlete and you're doing long, hard runs, then yeah, you might want to consider a bit more carbohydrate during that workout. But for most of us, my workouts are usually probably on average about 40 minutes. I don't need a carbohydrate supplementation. And I really don't even have to get up early and fuel that workout. The carbohydrates are there. I might get a little bit depleted during the workout, but I'm going to quickly replenish that for the next workout. And so consider, what are you doing? And is it really necessary for that added carbohydrate in the workout, in the window of the workout? But definitely, when you have your highest amount of carbohydrates, should be in that window of the workout, whether it's pre, during, or closely after your intensive workouts. And then limit your carbs to mainly vegetables throughout the rest of the day, or starches that have a much better glycemic index that aren't going to be absorbed as quickly into your system.
And with that slow digesting, that's going to help with muscle recovery and rebuild. Speaking of muscle recovery and rebuild, that's a perfect segue into number 7, which is going to be your favorite one because you have a bedtime, is get more and better sleep.
Yeah, and again, more is relative. If you're getting a good 7 to 8 quality hours of sleep, you don't need to sleep more. Maybe you just need to sleep better. So if you are sleeping for 8 hours, that's going to be good for you. If you're sleeping less than that, it's not going to be as good. And in fact, in the article, they talk about the effects that sleep can have on testosterone levels for men. So in one study, they had men who they tested their testosterone first thing in the morning after a night's sleep. And the guys who slept for 4 hours had testosterone levels between 200 and 300 nanograms per deciliter of blood. Guys who slept for 8 hours woke up with testosterone levels between 500 and 700 nanograms per deciliter.
And what age were they?
I don't know. I'd have to go back into the original study. They don't cite the ages in there. But we also know that, if we deprive the body of sleep, insulin sensitivity is going to be lower, which means we're more likely to put on fat rather than getting carbohydrate into the muscle. So there's a lot of biochemistry that happens if we don't get enough sleep. When we sleep is when our body is recovering. So I always like to tell my students, the gains are stimulated in the gym, but they're made in the bed.
Ooh.
When you're sleeping, that's when your body is recovering from all the stresses of the day, and it's replacing the fuels, it's replacing damaged cells. And so getting enough sleep is highly important. And it has to be quality sleep.
That's good. That was what I was going to ask. Does it matter quantity, or is it more important to get quality? Because if you get 8 hours of sleep a night, but then say you have sleep apnea, so you're not getting full rested sleep, versus what Arnold Schwarzenegger would do, where he would average only 5 hours of sleep of night. I'm assuming he was hitting that deep REM sleep every single time, allowing his whole body to recover.
Well, and I think another important thing to note with Arnold in that time when he was getting 5 hours of sleep and training the way he was, is that he was enhanced. There's no doubt that Arnold was doing steroids. I don't think he denies any of that.
No.
And so that steroids is going to counteract some of that diminishing effect that the lack of sleep is going to have on the testosterone levels and on the insulin sensitivity. And so that's a little bit of it, it's something you have to kind of take with a bit of a grain of salt when you say, well, he did 5 hours and look how much muscle he was able to gain. I do kind of agree with his premise of, when he says, if you're sleeping more than 6 hours, sleep faster. I think, you can get by with 6 hours of sleep if it is good quality sleep. You are adequately fueling your body and you are exercising to a more moderate level and you don't have excessive stresses in your life, then that's going to be fine. But 6 is really, I think, the bare minimum for what you should be getting. And I think 8 really becomes the maximum. You don't want to be sleeping more than 8 hours if you are not getting good quality sleep in that 8 hours and you're in bed for 10 hours, you need to be doing something that's going to help improve that quality of that sleep more so than sleeping longer.
Hmm.
And so I think 7 hours is really a good sweet spot because it doesn't impede on your day. I think it helps if you have that regular bedtime and regular rise time so that consistently day after day we are getting up and going to bed at the same time. That's going to be as beneficial as getting the full 8 hours. That makes sense?
Yeah. I think it's personally, I think it's quality over quantity. I just don't think that there's proper adequate research regarding that. And that's my opinion. There's a lot of literature that's out there on full 8 hours, and the effects of not getting the full 8 hours, but it doesn't really show the outliers of, okay, what's actually taking place in those 8 hours? Are they hitting that REM sleep? Are they getting that deep level? So I
Yeah.
think that is also going to have a huge factor that has to do with it.
Well, everybody's different too. I mean, how, you interact with your day, the diet, all that's going to impact your sleep, how much stress you're under, what are you thinking about when you're sleeping or not sleeping? Um, all that's going to have a factor in the quality of the sleep that you get. And so everybody just needs to focus in on how much good quality sleep can I get. And, I've seen places where they've said that 4 hours is actually enough to get adequate brain recovery, but is our body necessarily recovering otherwise? And so sometimes we will go through cycles of sleep where it's 4 hours and then we start a new cycle. And that's where kind of the 8 kind of comes into it because you get 2 good full REM cycles of sleep.
Einstein
There's been
did
people
45
historically
minutes.
that'll sleep for like 4 hours, get up in the middle of the night, and then work for a period of time and then go back and sleep again. Getting 2 4 hour things of sleep a day has some benefit.
Wow.
I'm okay with napping as well especially as we age.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I felt like that in college a lot. I was like, man, feel like I need a nap.
And sometimes that, and it's not so much for the physical recovery, but it's more the neurological recharging of the brain and kind of resetting of things that just a little bit of a nap can sometimes have some benefit for us.
I feel that way.
Yeah. And so ideally, go to bed at the same time, get up the same time, strive for 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And that's going to help you to better maintain and to hopefully build muscle mass as we attempt to age well. Any other things that you would add to their list? Because that brings us to the conclusion of this article, which I think is very informative. They back it up with literature, and it's a doable 7 steps to helping us build more muscle mass, whether we are young or old.
No, I just would include our 5x5 or our whatever we call it, our Superior 7, adding those in to
You're calling it Superior 7
That's
now?
what I'm going to call it. Yep, our strength filled
I
7.
think just, a good balanced approach to strength
Yeah.
training. For most of us, if we're not bodybuilding, we don't need to do a lot of isolation exercises or, weird fancy exercises in order to build strength. Strength is quite simple. It's, do those basic movements, do them on a firm surface where you're producing force. And if you are progressively adding the amount of force that your muscles are generating, you're getting stronger, you are going to hypertrophy, or you're going to at least maintain muscle mass.
Yeah.
If you're not progressing, you're not getting stronger, you're not adding muscle mass. If you are getting weaker and you are losing muscle mass, you're going to lose functionality.
Well said.
So these are 7 simple muscle building habits for aging well, which would include don't diet, which means stay in a eucaloric or hypercaloric state. Get the calories in. So eat the foods that your body needs in order to build and maintain your muscle mass. Eat the right types of calories. Up the protein. So as a rule of thumb, keep it at about 1 gram per pound of body weight. Keep track. So record what you're eating, what you're doing exercise-wise. You might also want to, for a while, track your sleep patterns. As we look at getting enough sleep as well, what are the things that are helping you sleep, maybe interfering with your sleep, what's giving you better quality of sleep. The more you're tracking, the more you can kind of look back over recent days and weeks and see what's working, what's not working. So keeping track of things is going to be hugely important. Use basic supplementation. We highlight, taking a creatine supplementation. I'd say up to 5 grams per day would be helpful for anyone, but especially anybody who's exercising regularly, anybody who's trying to add or maintain muscle mass. Fish oil can be helpful as well for your heart and brain health, and especially if you are not getting enough oily fish in your diet. Eat your greens. We would add eat your colors, get your vegetables in, and then finally get 7 to 8 better quality hours of sleep.
Sounds good to me. Sounds like a perfect blend of everyone needs to do in order to
age well.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.